Hey YouTube, believe it or not, we're back with another new project again. So we just purchased this Mini Lite by Rockwood travel trailer. We got a pretty good deal on it because it's got a soft spot in the bathroom floor that we're going to try and take care of today. So we're going to go in and see what we got to do to get it fixed. So the camper for the most part is all in pretty good shape. That's why we were drawn to it. We got the deal because of this, and this was their poor attempt at trying to fix it. This is like 1/8 or 1/4 inch plywood that they just screwed down to the floor, but I don't know if I'll be able to show you very well, but this whole area here is really soft. So we're going to start by getting this stuff out of the way. We'll probably end up pulling the toilet, and we'll see what we're dealing with, what we can do to fix it. The previous repair, if you want to call it that, came out pretty easy. It doesn't look like there's any water damage or anything, which is a good thing. I've done a little research online, and I think I know what's going on, but we're going to take the circular saw and set it pretty shallow depth and see if we can make a cut in here. And then we'll just start digging away at it little by little and see what we've got going on under here. Yep, the floor's broke. Oh no, there's rot. Wonder why it's wet. But that's why it's broken. It was holding up pretty good, actually. The top side. So I wonder where the water's coming from. Well, it looks like I was probably wrong. So what I researched online did say that the foam was like this, and so that's all as expected. The foam really seems to be in pretty good shape, but as you can see on that bottom layer, we've got a lot of rot. So the top layer seems to be all in good shape. This bottom layer, not so much. And there is a little bit of staining and rot up here. So we're going to try and track that down, see if maybe water's coming through the top of the floor somewhere and catching on the bottom, because the underlayment for the trailer appears to be glued to that bottom piece as well. So I don't know if it's trapping the moisture in or if we've just got a lot of moisture coming in from somewhere, but the hunt continues to see what's going on. With more of the vinyl floor peeled up, we're following our rotten path here, and it does come over to this wall, kind of over by the window, but following it around, everything looks good around the toilet, and it comes around and follows this wall and over to this corner cabinet. So we've got some stuff on the other side of that cabinet we'll go check out that we're kind of suspecting now. So it's dark out here, but this is the corner of the camper that we were looking at from the inside. Note, we've got it hooked up to water now. We're checking for leaks with that, but note that the water inlet is on the bottom here. So as we come inside, this is where all of our water pump and water inlet is. You can see this here is the back of that cabinet that I was talking about. And the floor underneath doesn't look too bad, but when you come around, you see our little black trail following over into here. And I believe we're leaking at that water inlet somewhere. It's hard to tell exactly, but see if I can get this angle. That top water inlet, the antifreeze inlet, doesn't seem to have anything leaking through there. The plywood and styrofoam look good. On this connection down here, if I can get in here, if you look around it, it's kind of black. It's got some of that mold going on, so the water's coming in from somewhere. We've got just a touch of water on the floor, but then here now it looks like it's drying up. So nothing obvious leaking. The only thing that I can see that seems to be going on is where the hose connects. Okay, so it's obviously leaking right here. There's some water there, but up underneath there seems to be water in there. I'm assuming that water is coming out and somewhere in that bulkhead is able to make it through that door or through the wall. So we're gonna have to check into that. For now, we're gonna keep tearing out some floor and see what else we can find. But right now, this is what we suspect. Once we got started, it was kind of hard to tell where to stop. So here's our lack of a bathroom floor. I came back almost to the door back here. You can see I cut it off in front of the shower. It goes over under that cabinet. The toilet's gone. You can see the flange there. And then we're up under the cabinet here. So it was tough to decide where to stop exactly. The floor, I'll show you a piece of that and how that works here in a minute. But the top, for the most part, was good, obviously, other than the black areas that I showed you earlier. But it was the bottom part. It's like water got into the bottom, and that underlayment held it up under the floor and rotted that bottom piece of plywood. So everywhere here where we'll be walking, I'm going to replace it with 1/2-inch plywood and some 2x4s. The stuff that's under these cabinets, some of that still has some rotten plywood. We're going to remove that and replace it here before long, but first we're going to get started on replacing this section of floor, and then we'll do that other part later. We're down here at ground level, and I thought I'd give you a shot of what we're dealing with exactly. So this is a piece of the floor that was in the bathroom here. So you can see it's like a 1/4 inch or 3/16 Luan or plywood, and the white polystyrene foam glued to what used to be the same plywood on the bottom. And on the bottom also, the RV underlayment was glued to the bottom. So almost everywhere, other than the black spots that I showed you earlier, the top of the floor was fine, but the bottom side was rotten. Almost like water had come in and that underlayment had held the water up on that plywood and rotted it. So with some more investigation, I think I've found some other problems. I think we're dealing with more than just one thing going on, but I figured I'd show you that. We're going to continue on with replacing this floor. So I cut the floor out everywhere. It looks pretty similar because I painted it white, but I dug out all the foam and put in a 2x4, sandwiched a 2x4 between the flooring there, and screwed it in. So that will give me my edge that I can attach the new repair floor to. I didn't want to put treated flooring in here, or treated wood, just because of the different problems that it can cause. So I'm just putting in regular 2x4s and trying to get them painted on all sides. You can see I've got some touch up there to do. And then along the back wall here, so this is a piece of 1.5-inch square tubing, and that was the original frame of the floor. Well, I'm planning on running 2x4s flat from the front to the back, and then we're going to put plywood on top of that. So along this back, I put in this 2x4, wrapped it in underlayment, and I'll explain a little more about that later. But screwed it every 6 inches into that square tubing, and then you can see I've got a little ledge here for my plywood to land on. So my quote-unquote floor joists will come up and be flush with the top of this, and then I'm going to put in 1/2-inch plywood, and because of setting it down like that, it should be flush to where the old floor was. So then when I put new flooring over, everything will match up. I've got everything, all the different pieces I've been cutting and fitting and make sure it's all going to work. And then I've painted all of them so I can get all the cut ends and everything painted, trying to get it sealed up as best as possible. I've got that taken care of, so now I need to get the bottom plywood that I'm going to, the sheeting on the bottom. I'm going to get some underlayment put on that, and I'll show you how I'm going to try that. This is one of the 3 pieces of the bottom underboard, I guess you want to call it, that I've got cut. So I've got 3 different pieces because this will have to go in first, and I wouldn't be able to get an entire piece, the whole patch, all at one time. So these are going to have to go in first. But before that, to help protect them, I'm going to try to put on the underlayment. So this is underlayment just like what the RV originally had on it. I just ordered it from Amazon. It wasn't too terribly expensive. And what I'm going to try to do is individually wrap each one of these pieces. So I'm going to glue that down. I've got some 3M Super 77 contact adhesive, so hopefully that will work. And then I'm going to stick that on and then roll these corners up, and then where the pieces meet, I've got some mending tape. It's a 4-inch wide tape of the same underlayment that I'm going to seal that up with. So we'll see if this works. Hopefully it will. Well, that seemed to work pretty well. I'm definitely glad I did one of the small pieces first. I could have cut that a little bit better, but it seems to be sticking down pretty good. I used my Yeti koozie as a roller to get it stuck good, but it looks like it's going to hold all right, and we'll try it on the next big one. So here's a pretty good shot of the floor that we're building back in here. You can see my underlayment here. I'm laying that down before I put these, I guess you call them floor joists in. We've got one screwed in here. This is the piece of the plywood, so you can see as it lays on top of there, it's flush with the old floor. And then we're screwing in to that back 2x4, and then with the help of the Craig jig, I got screws going through there and screwing into those 2x that I placed in the floor. So the next step, I'll have to go up under. Whenever I've got these floor joists that come from here and go across, these beams, they're kind of beam supports, whatever you want to call them, they don't touch the bottom of the floor. They're really just intended to hold the tank, but they're pretty rigid. I've been standing on them and stuff, so after I get this done, I'll go underneath and I'll cut some spacers that will go from the top of this and butt up against the bottom of the floor, just to help give it a little more support on this end where we're just kind of dependent on that floor membrane over here. This end I'm not nearly as worried about because I've got that 2x4 and that piece of square tubing, so that ought to be fairly rigid. But we're spanning a couple feet here from this last brace over there, so I want to support it out here as far as possible. I finished putting in the 2x4s for our floor joists. I got those all screwed into these edge boards there, where they're 1 foot on center, and then I've got 2 over there at the toilet. I figured that would be kind of a high stress area, so we've got 2 under the toilet flange there. And then I just had some pink bad insulation laying around, so I tore it up and stuck it back in there as insulation in the floor. Probably not as good as it was originally, but it'll be something there to help keep the AC in. So all the plywood pieces are cut and painted on all sides, so I'm going to start getting those put in. And here's the finished view from the top side. I've got all 3 pieces put in. We did it in 3 so I could get around the toilet flange there and have enough room to get it up under this cabinet. I screwed it every 8 or 10 inches, and now that everything's all locked together, it feels pretty good underfoot. I may not have a body made for very much, but I'm a hell of a floor tester, so the fact that it feels good under my feet means that it's going to do pretty good for everybody else. The next step, we're going to get everything cleaned up and put in a laminate floor before we get the toilet put in and all this other trim and everything around. So we'll probably do that in a separate video, but this is the end of the project from the inside anyway. Here we are on the bottom side of the trailer. Thought I'd show you how things ended up under here so you can see, maybe you can see, this is our 2x4 that we screwed to this aluminum square tubing. And kind of the idea of doing this is I'm kind of thinking that Part of the problem was water was coming from the outside, getting between the underlayment, and that underlayment was holding it into the plywood. The plywood used to come all the way out to the edge here, and the underlayment went up under this trim piece. So I eliminated that. This is just bare tubing, and then this 2x4 will act as kind of a water stop if anything comes out. I don't know if there will be any more water like that anymore or not. But then here, so these are the pieces that I of 1/8 inch plywood that I cut out and laminated the underlayment to, and then I've just got it screwed up every so often in those 2x4s to hold it up tight. Everything, I was pretty happy with how everything's sealed up pretty tight. It's hard to get a very good angle there, but you can see where it butts up to that 2x4 there. That all fits pretty nice. I was gonna run that repair tape over all the seams, but everything fits up pretty tight, and I don't know that I'd be improving anything by putting that tape on there. Plus, I think I'd have some issue getting it to stick. So I think we're just gonna leave it the way it is. But this came out pretty well. And then if we go up into the next bay, so that's some of the replacement floor too, and then you can see the white 3/4 inch strip, so that's on top of that tank brace, and it's just helping support the floor a little bit. There's one up under this way too. I know it's hard to see, but anyway, that wraps up the project. Keep an eye out for our flooring video, which will be coming out here pretty soon. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.